Greetings, developers and Moralis mages. Welcome to another Avalanche Hackathon live stream event. I'm here with Sochil, Partnership Marketing Manager at Ava Labs. And Sochil is going to explain to us a little bit about how marketing works and how we can improve our projects with better marketing, and also answer some questions after her presentation. So take it away, Sochil.
Thank you so much, Phil. And hello, everyone, and good morning. Thank you so much for joining. Like Phil already said, my name is Sochil Ivory, and I'm the Partnership Marketing Manager here at Ava Labs. And today I'll be giving you a marketing workshop where you'll learn some of the key principles for a successful marketing strategy. When you walk out of this room today, I hope you walk out of this virtual room understanding what goes into a successful marketing strategy. And hopefully you'll be able to apply some of it, if not all of it, to your project. And I also aim to provide value beyond just your submission. So I hope that that you're able to implement some of these things, not just for your submission, but also for your 2.0 phase for your project. So thank to all of you for all your dedication and engagement during this hackathon. It's been really fun to be part of it behind the scenes. I want to give a shout out to the Moralis team, to Bertie, Phil, Ivan, and to my own team as well, to Eric, Gabriel, and Luigi. It's been really great to be part of this. And I can't wait to see what you're all building. So as a founder, most of the people in this room today are founders or future founders. You can probably do everything yourself. You're probably doing everything yourself right now. You are your own marketing person, your own business development, your developer, you name it, right? Or maybe you're in a position that you are able to afford your own marketing person. Whatever the case may be, you always want to be able to speak to your marketing strategy, to applaud it if your team is doing a great job, to question it when it needs to be revised, and to just kick some butt. So every subject of this workshop could be its own seminar and workshop. So there's a lot of information coming your way, and it's supposed to help you and support you. We do not have that type of time that kind of time to be going into depth into everything. So we'll just be touching the surface of every subject. And before we go into the subject, just a little bit about me. I've been active in the Web3 space since 2015, but only joined as a full-time job in Web3 about a year ago, I'd say. And before I was in Web3, I was leading digital marketing for different luxury brands around the world, including Intercontinental, Ritz-Carlton, and Starwood. So a lot has happened ever since I started at Ava Labs. Great, so let's dive into it. For today's agenda, we'll start with covering what the marketing environment is and how to scan the macro and micro environments of the marketing environment. Then we'll go into how to do a SWOT analysis and why it's so helpful and key to do this. Then we'll go into how to conduct market segmentation, to target a market, and how to position yourself or your project. And then we'll talk a little bit about branding, and then there's time for a Q&A. Okay, so the marketing environment. What is the marketing environment? So this is the environment of a company that mostly is outside of a company's power, in this case a project, that affects your marketing ability to develop and maintain successful engagement with your target audience, in this case, target users. So in other words, it's the environment that you can't really do anything about, right? So it's important to be aware of what's happening in that environment so you can equip yourself well to enter that environment. So this environment offers both opportunities and threats. And as a founder, you must be aware of all the trends happening so that you can adjust your strategies accordingly, right? You have to watch these developments closely. So this marketing environment consists out of something we call a macro and a micro environment. So the first step for a strategy is to scan this environment. So we'll start with the macro environment, okay? And basically what that is, this literally is the environment, the external forces that a company has no influence on whatsoever, right? So for example, a trend that's apparently here to stay is the pandemic. That's something that has affected a lot of businesses a lot, and that's not something that you as an individual company can do anything about. It's just happening in the external environment. Okay, so basically, the macro environment is all these external forces that you can do anything about, and you have to scan this environment. Now, this environment can be a little overwhelming because it's very big and you could be scanning it forever and you're on the clock here. So here are some pointers. Here are some forces that you want to scan for trends that you want to be aware of. So some of the main pillars there are demographic force. So this force consists out of trends that describe your population of the markets you're trying to enter, and its composition based on criteria like gender, the age, education, and also income. So this will give you, scanning that environment and looking for trends there will give you an idea about what's going on in the demographic trends. Economic force. So here you're watching for trends that indicate inflation, deflation, recession. The tech force. So that is the latest tech trends, highly relevant for blockchain, but also look beyond blockchain trends, right? For example, what's next? What do people want in their user experience? These are trends that could be highly relevant to your dapp that you're developing. What are some key features that people are looking for in technology? Political and legal. Now, this is also very relevant to blockchain. So looking for trends, the policies of the government, of the market that you're entering, tax regulations, very important to be aware of in blockchain, as most of you know. And then the social cultural force as well. Now, this is also really interesting. So these are the traditions, the living habits, and the way people think in a certain market. And it's really important to be aware of those because our purchase decisions are greatly affected by these trends, right? So really, it's like the culture of the market you're trying to enter. You want to make sure that the product or the service that you're offering is not rejected by society. You want to make sure that it's embraced and accepted. Okay. So the macro environment, again, is the environment you have no control over. You want to have a good idea about what's going on there. So this will give you a good snapshot of that. So now that you know what's going on there, I also should mention that every trend that you are finding here, you want to conclude that into an opportunity or a threat. So don't just look for the trends. Also really try to conclude something out of it. So, for example, an opportunity that could be relevant for your company is general trends, and I am oversimplifying this example, but blockchain is becoming more mainstream, right, in this or that market. Great, that's an opportunity to you because you happen to be in that industry. A threat could be that a certain market that you're scanning does not have really great policies set up for blockchain. So that could be a threat. You don't know how that's going to change or affect your business. So that's obviously an example of a threat there. Great. So now that you have scanned the macro environment and have a good idea about what's happening there, the next environment you want to do a scan on is the micro environment. Now, this environment includes forces that are closer to a company that it has some degree of control over. Not all of it, but a little bit more than the external environment, right? So some examples of these, and there's a lot more forces that are included in the microenvironment, but just to keep it a little bit simple. So an example of a micro-environmental force is the company itself, right? So it's almost like you're doing a self-scan. So when you look at the company, at your own company, you're looking at assessing the objectives that you set. You're looking at the strategies that you may have implemented, and also maybe your team composition. So, and that's highly relevant because you want to understand what your team brings to the table and what it may be lacking, right? You want to make sure that you're aware of that. Another one is a competitive analysis, and this is really important. So that in this stage, or this step, I should say, what you're doing in the microenvironment is you select, let's say, your top 10 competitors, and you're going to be scanning who they are. So what some of the weaknesses are that they have and what some of the strengths are that they may have, right? And compare that to yourself. So similar to the macro environments, you want to conclude everything into a strength and a weakness. So for the macro environment, we have opportunity and threat. And for the forces closer to a company, you are concluding them into a strength or a weakness. Okay. So by now, what you have done, if you're done with this as well, with this scan, you have an idea about what's going on in an environment you've no control over. And the microenvironment is almost like doing a self scan, right? Knowing what you bring to the table and what you're lacking. Really important for when you're building a strategy. So once you have obtained these two things, you're ready for your next step, which is a SWOT analysis. And you may already see this is an acronym of the items that we just collected. This is a technique that is used to help organizations identify your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and relate that to your competition. So basically, what that is, it's a summary of everything that you just found in the macro environment and the micro environment. So when you put that together in summary, it should look something like this. Obviously, it will be a lot bigger, but these are just examples. So you have everything nice in a column, and you have them together in summary. Now, in a SWOT analysis, you go a step further. It's not just a summary. You're also going to look at everything that you've collected, and you're going to describe how you're going to capitalize on each strength and opportunity, or how you're going to deal with each weakness and threat that you may have found in the environment. So, for example, maybe you have, as a small business, you have an audit under your belt. Great. How are you going to capitalize on that? How are you going to take that into account for your messaging? Maybe you found that you're more affordable than your competitors. How are you going to use that in your messaging? An example of a weakness could be, well, I've looked at my competitors, their budget is probably bigger than mine. That is a weakness, right? But a strength could also be, since you're a small team and you're a small business, that you are able to adapt quickly to changes in the environment. So that is an example of another strength, right? So here you're really going to take a look. You're already going to start thinking ahead about what you're going to do in order that you're well equipped to enter, as I call it, the battlefields for your startup, right? And startup life is a little violent, but I think if you take these steps, you are well equipped to enter that field. So you may say, well, why would I do this? Why would I not just go and learn it along the way, right? And I'll see what works. Well, you can do that, but entering that battlefield blindly will probably end up in you wasting your time, wasting money, and wasting motivation. And money, motivation, and time are three things that you cannot be wasting as a startup, right? It's not something motivation you probably have in abundance, but the other two you want to watch very closely and not waste that. So you have here arrived at a great snapshot, almost as a the way I like to describe it is, there is the battlefield, right? You have scanned the environment in this field. You're aware of all the things that you cannot influence that are happening there. Before you enter, you now know what you bring to the table and what you're lacking and how you are going to deal with that. And you also know what your competitors are bringing to the table and what they are lacking. So you are really ready at this point for the next step. So the next step here is market segmentation, conducting market segmentation. Now, what this means, and this is the official description, it's the stage where you as a project or as a company identify and profile distinct groups of buyers, in this case users, who have different needs and wants, okay? So this is the stage where this is not the stage where you're going to make a decision who you're gonna go after. This is the stage where you're just going to educate yourself on the different users that are out there. So I made this yesterday as an analogy. It's almost as if you're walking into a room with a big dinner table with different cakes, right? And I love cake. So, and every cake represents a different audience that, you might go after or not. You're just, taking a good look and see what's out there. So, and I've oversimplified this, of course, there's more audiences, but it could be, okay, well, you're aware there's NFT audience, DeFi, there's gaming, enterprise, and there's a lot more, obviously. And you can get as detailed and niche as you want at this stage, because even within NFTs, an NFT audience, there's, different segments. Within DeFi, there's, a lot of different segments as well. So here you're taking the time to just get familiar with what's out there. Now, the next stage is what we call where you target your market as a project or as a company. So this is the stage that you're going to choose who you're going to go after. Now, it's up to you who you're going to go after, but for startups, I always suggest that you just start with going after one market, okay? Stay focused, choose your segment, and become really good at that one thing, okay? For that one audience. You can always take on more as you grow. So you want to stay focused and choose wisely. So, of course, you're not just going to go and choose it like this, right? You're not going to make a blind choice here. Here, you're going to make the choice based on all the findings that we've just done, right? In the macro environment, micro, you've identified where the opportunities are and what your strengths are. So taking all of that into account, now you're going to choose your audience. Now, I know that on Monday your submissions are due and you're not able probably to take all these steps, right? But I think if you're able to include and speak to why the audience that you chose, why there's an opportunity for that, and how you are going to satisfy their needs, it's going to be really strong if you can include that. Okay, so try to be able to speak to that in your submission, in your go-to-market strategy. Great. So now that you've chosen your audience, and this is, I think, where the fun starts, it's time for you to get to know your audience. And what does that mean? So really, this is how you should see it. You have to get to know your audience, because this is basically going to be the community that you're going to go after. Okay, so you have to know everything about them. So that includes, where do they spend their time online? What are their interests? Where do they live? What is their lifestyle like? Their income? What brands do they like? This is really important, because if you ever are at the stage of partnerships, you want to make sure that you're introducing a partnership that makes sense. What are their key values? Okay. Now, if you can figure out what their key values are of your audience, I might as well give you the grand prize money right now. Okay. Because that is like the holy grail of marketing. Figuring out what the key values are of your segment is really important. Okay. It will set you up for success across every strategy that you roll out. The key values. And I hear you thinking, well, this is all great, but how the heck am I going to figure out what their key values are, Sochil? Well, I'm glad you asked, because, I don't expect you to be able to do this all necessarily from scratch. And luckily you don't have to, because there are really great research reports out there about target marketing and about different segments. You may be able to find one that's even blockchain specific. Deloitte brings out really great customer reports, segment reports, and PricewaterhouseCoopers does the same. So yes, you don't have to do this research from scratch. It would be great if you could, but you probably can't, considering you're a very small team right now. Bigger companies will hire agencies that do it for them, right? But that obviously costs a lot of money. But I know that you can do a great job doing this yourself, because I've done it myself as well. So now that you know who your audience is, what their key values are, I think it's always helpful to draw what they call a marketing persona. So marketing persona is a fictional representation of your user. Okay, so I call this user Robin. I was trying to think of a name that could be both for a man or for a woman. And you want to really get familiar with them. So it would look something like this. So you know what their lifestyle is at this point, kind of what their job title tends to be, their income, how much time they spend online and where, their hobbies, their key values. In this case, I made this a very eco-friendly user. So durability, ease of use is important for him as well, or her. And favorite brands include Patagonia and the North Face. All right. So this is going to give you a great sense of who your audience is. And you want to make it very relatable and make it fun so that your entire team understands who they are going after. Great. So now that we know who Robin is, what the key values are of Robin, which if you can figure that out, again, that's incredible because that's going to set you up for success. Now it's time for the next stage, which is positioning your brand or positioning your project. And literally at this stage, what that means is that you are literally going to position yourself in the market. So I made this yesterday. And the fish represents competitors in your field. Let's say that for your user, we've found that the key drivers for purchasing or using are price and quality. Okay, so then you want to map out and kind of see where all your competitors are in this map, right? So you see here that this part is kind of crowded at the moment, and you see that here not so much, but it gives you an idea of where everybody is, where all the other where your competitors are in this market. And it's very obvious that there is a big opportunity here for you to position yourself over here. So what would that look like? Boom, it would look like that. So what that means is, okay, you know that Robin values high quality and is a little bit more sensitive to price. So if you have a product that's highly scalable, this is a big opportunity, right? You're going to offer something that's high quality and it's priced competitively as well. So this gives you a great opportunity to position yourself and to differentiate yourself from your competitors. So after positioning, now that you know who Robin is, what's going on in the external environment, the strengths that you bring as a company, all of that, you're going to summarize all of this into the next stage, which is branding, right? So branding, the official description is the process of communicating your unique selling proposition. So you're going to communicate your differentiator into your branding. You're going to embed all these things that you've learned about Robin, about what is going to attract him or her into the soul of your company, as I call it. This is also a fun part because here you now have arrived at the stage that you have a creative framework in which you can work, right? Because everything that you're going to do here, you know what will make sense and what doesn't make sense. So you obviously may not have a lot of time to roll out your whole brand look and feel at this stage, but there are some things that you can do here. So to start designing the soul of your company, for example, you know now that Robin likes hiking and nature. Maybe that's something that you want to take into account in your project name, if that's something that's relevant, of course. You want to maybe take that into account for the logo that you are designing. And you definitely want to take it into account for the vision and your mission statement that you're writing. And really take the time to do that because, again, this is the soul of your company. You want to describe who you are, the impact you're planning to make, and how you're going to do that, right? And when you write this, write it as if you're writing it to your user and to potential investors. Well, they are your potential investors, right? So you really want to be very clear on the impact you're trying to make and how you're going to do that and how you're going to do that differently than your competitors. Now, I suggest to not be writing 12 pages of that. Just keep it short and sweet. Just be clear, no BS, and be straightforward there. Okay. So now that we've done branding, we've arrived at this stage. The next stage is, okay, this is great. Well, where do I start? Because there's a lot of interesting things coming your way, but where do I start? So my suggestion to you would be start with writing out what your key objectives are for your project, right? And that will determine where your priorities lie. So start by maybe writing short-term and long-term goals. So short-term is goals that are anywhere between 0 to 6 months, right? And then long-term is 2 to 3 years. Where do you want to be and what are some of the goals that you want to have achieved? What are your product development goals? Maybe you want to have your dapp live by, within half a year. You want to have like the best version of that life. Great. So what does that mean? That might mean that you need marketing to help you design the brand look and feel of that, right? So that indicates priority there. Another one might be, well, for business development, my goal is to have X amount of users. Great. So how can marketing help support that? How can we go and target that market that you want to have users from? Maybe you sit down with them and roll out some creative initiatives there, right? So there's a lot you can do. And if you're wondering, where do I start? Start by writing out the goals that you want to achieve as a company. And then after, think, okay, well, how can marketing help me here? And that will indicate what the marketing goals will be and some of the initiatives that you can introduce. So just to recap, the key principles of a successful marketing strategy. And these principles are not just for a successful marketing strategy. If you follow these steps, these will be the backbone of your entire strategy, right? For your business strategy, for anything. So to recap, the marketing environment. Scan the marketing environment, all right? So the macro environment is the environment where you have no control over. Micro includes your own company and the competitors, right? How to conduct a SWOT analysis and why that's important. Market segmentations, how to conduct market segmentation. So this is where you're educating yourself on the audiences that are out there. Market targeting. So here's where you're going to make that educated choice on who you're going to go after based on all the research you've done here. Positioning. Here is how you're going to decide how to differentiate, how to position yourself, and how you will differentiate yourself from your competitors. And finally, branding. This is everything that goes into designing the soul of your company. Okay. And then how to prioritize your set objectives to determine your priority and where to start. Great. So before we go into Q&A, I want to share some really straightforward marketing tricks that I know you're all wondering, okay, well, what are some things that I can do for my submission for Monday? And here are some things that have really helped me because I also am next to what I do for Avalabs, a founder myself. Here are some items that have really helped me in my founder journey. So for brand and design, maybe you have an incredible idea of what you want to do. You just do not have the skills to design it yourself. Same here, by the way. But now I do, because Canva is a really great website where you can go and design, whether it's Twitter posts, you can even design your own logo there. You can look for a brand feel that you want to have for your website. It's a really great website, and I think it only costs $12 a month. And Fiverr, that's another great website. If you're looking to have a professional logo for Monday, then I would suggest you go here. It's a third party where you can ask designers to come up with some ideas for you, and they will, I think there's 2 rounds of review generally, and you can let them know, hey, I really like this, or let's go for that design. Or maybe you know what logo you want, and then they can design it for you. Start with online presence. I know this is the era of Web3, but I read a quote somewhere that said, well, Web2 is going to be the bridge to embark everybody to Web3. Okay, so as long as Web3 is around, you want to make sure you have presence there. So always make sure you have your Twitter account, make sure you have a LinkedIn and a Discord if that makes sense for you. All right, start by claiming those names if you already have a company name, and make sure that you get a presence there. Community. So even after this hackathon is over, I really, first of all, Avalabs and Moralis want to stay in touch with you, okay? Your journey is not over after this hackathon. Whether you win or not, there will be a 2.0 phase for us, okay? So stay in touch with us. And what I'd suggest for you to do is that you become part of founder communities. So I live here in New York, so there's different founder communities that provide a lot of support to founders. So, for example, you have sessions where you kind of practice how to introduce yourself. So what this does is that every time you have to introduce yourself and your company, you become more and more used to how to describe yourself and your company. And it can be really helpful for once you're out there with real investors that you have just a really clean line on how you describe yourself. Okay, so practice getting out there, practice giving presentations. All of that is going to help you. And these founder communities are a great resource for that. So thank you very much. I hope this was useful. And I'd love to hear if you have any questions and I can provide answers. Thank you.
Well, that was great. I'm sure we'll have a couple questions coming in here shortly. I did notice a couple early in our stream here that I wanted to spotlight. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and put this one up so we can take a look. Since my team is building an app for the hackathon participants, could you share some of your insights into the macro environment, such as our demographics? So I think they're looking for some of your expert opinions on the current macro environment and what you think we're looking at there.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I wish that I had the answer to that. I would say that really depends on the market that you are trying to enter. So if you are in the US, maybe just to kind of reduce the work, you definitely want to take a look at the US environment. So my suggestion for this would be literally type in Google demographic trends 2022 US market, right? Type that in. And even when you add, what I've seen that also really helps, this is a hack. If you add .pdf, it'll give you some really great research, existing research on the demographic environment.
Good advice there. The next question I noticed here is from Paul. Let me go ahead and put this one up on the screen. If we launch a product that is new and does not yet exist on the market, how do we select competitors? Take the market leaders, products that are similar to ours, even if it's not exactly the same?
That's a great question as well. Yeah, I think it makes sense to take example of market leaders. Anything that is close to what you are developing, even if it's not exactly the same, is going to help you because if you analyze some of the things that they do great and some of the weaknesses that they have, these are just lessons that you can take into account for your new product. And I'm really excited for this product if it doesn't exist yet. I'm curious to see what that is.
It's one of the exciting things about being in emerging tech is a lot of us are working on brand new things that really, frankly, haven't existed before. And I agree. I think you hit the nail right on the head with identifying the market leaders, because if what you are introducing is truly innovative, it will be adopted by current participants, and you may be able to anticipate who those will be. Certainly, there were lots of crypto projects working on metaverses before Facebook announced that they're now Meta, and I suspect we'd see other things with good innovation. That is,
Yeah, that's a good example, the metaverse example. Yeah, you definitely can take some lessons from Facebook there on things that didn't go well. That's a great example.
okay. Just scrolling through here, looking. I'm gonna see if any questions came in really recently. Okay, we have one right here. Just put this one up here for us. I'm building a new metaverse. Should I make phase one NFT sales, or should I market the meta world itself? And what can people do, or what people can do in it? So I think this is sort of a general question on when you're developing a new product. Do you want to talk about the whole vision first, or do you want to tease with maybe little elements of it that you release one at a time? And
Hmm.
which one's a better way to go?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a great question as well. If I'm understand the question correctly, so it sounds like if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Krishna, you are looking to launch a metaverse, but there's going to be different aspects in this metaverse that you are going to roll out, and you're wondering, should I speak to the overall vision, or should I focus on one element of this? If that's the question, that I think it's good. I think it makes sense to speak to the entire vision. So you definitely want to say, hey, this is what's coming. This is what I envision. But here's the first stage of what I'm planning to roll out. And you want to also focus in rolling that out, that you do that really well. So start with becoming really good at catering to that NFT audience, if that's what you're looking to do first. And then once that's in place, you can add other items. But I see oftentimes that startups focus on so many things at the same time. And then think of it from a user perspective. They're like, okay, so what is this exactly about? Right. So even if you communicate first your vision, then that's great because that means that more is coming. But always start with, hey, this first phase, we're going to be focused on NFTs, and we'll be looking to add on other things. But make sure that you become really good at that one thing first.
Let's see. I just noticed this one right here. It's very specific, but I'm curious what insights we might have here. So when you're introducing a product in an already crowded market, how do you know where you're going to fall among the and what kind of, things should you look at to figure out where your position is in that market?
Yeah, great question. So this all depends on the when you if you remember that positioning map that I showed, it really depends on what that map is about, right? So in this example, it was about price and quality, but it really depends on what the key values are of that audience you're going for. If you have the two main values of your audience, that's going to dictate what that map is going to look like, right? And it really helps to include or map out your competitors in that overview as well. So it gives you an idea, okay, where is it crowded in this market and where is an opportunity?
I suppose, and that sometimes depends on what you're trying to bring to the table. It seems like if you're entering a crowded market, you're going to want to introduce something different than what other people are doing. And that might determine, and I'm just brainstorming here, so chill, but it seems like that might determine what elements you consider when you're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, for sure. So even if you're introducing something similar, there's always a way you can differentiate. And you really want to highlight that differentiator as much as you can. And obviously, that differentiator has to be appealing to your audience.
Oh, this is a good question. Curious how much bandwidth or resources should we devote to marketing? And maybe there's another question there. At what stage is should we start dedicating these resources? Is it a first step thing right along with development, or is there a certain point where we redivert resources there? How does that look?
Yeah, great question. So you never want to save money on your marketing, is always my opinion. But unfortunately, we always have to. Sometimes when you are, especially when you are a founder, you are, again, you're doing everything yourself. If you are able to do so, you want to start planning immediately for marketing. You want to make sure that every decision that you're taking does make sense from a marketing perspective, right? Because what I see a lot is that people are like, oh, let's do this meme or let's do this campaign. That sounds great. Okay, well, that's great, but you want to make sure that it's on what they call on brand, that it's in line with your strategy, in line with your vision, and that it appeals to your audience. So you really want to be able to do that as soon as possible. My advice would be right away. If you have the funds, definitely right away. If it's just you and your teammate or just you can still conduct all of this on your own. It will take more time, but it'll show to your investors that you've really taken the time to assess what's going on and what the opportunities are. So my recommendation would be to do it from the start if you can. Uh, if you have resources to invest in it, do it, and otherwise try to do it yourself.
I saw a comment here where somebody's saying, "Are we both going to be available at the hackathon work together today?" We will,
We
for
will,
at
yeah.
least a period of time. So if we don't get to your question here, write it down and bring it up at the HWT because we can address it at that time. That said, we do have time for at least one or two more here. Let me see. Here we go. This one's very specific, but I think it's good. How do we deliver competitive information and objective handling material to your sales teams? How can they be aligned? So it's like a general philosophy question. How do you align your different
Yeah.
departments in these marketing efforts?
This is a really great question. Thank you, Constantino. And this is, I'm really glad you brought that up because I've seen in the past, you either do it right or you're not doing it right. Because some companies have really, it's marketing versus sales, right? Then there's some companies that really do it well. So you have sales, or in this case, in crypto, I guess it's more business development and marketing working hand in hand together. Now, what you want to do is you want to get a grasp of what the business development goals are, right? So you want to make sure, okay, any strategies that we're going to roll out, does it make sense from a return on investment perspective, right? Is it in line with the business development goals that we have? You always want to make sure that you speak to the representatives of the markets to make sure that you are in sync. So it's something we definitely do internally as well. We make sure that we're in sync. We review the opportunities. I think I work more closely at this point with our BD team, business development team at Avalabs, than with my own marketing team. So it's very important, and you want to make sure you are a team. It's never you versus them. So my recommendation would be, since it's the start of the year, in this case, it's the start of your project. Write out your objectives for business development, for product development, and then look at how marketing can support that. And that'll indicate the marketing objectives.
Excellent. All right. Well, on that note, I think we're about ready to wrap it up here. If I noticed that a couple of people had more than one question, we're happy to take those questions at the hackathon, work together, and get through the rest of those at that time. So once again, Sochil, thank you so much for the presentation. I hope everybody learned a lot. I certainly did, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you in about an hour at the hackathon, work together.
Great. Thank you all. Thank you for this opportunity. And I can't wait to see what you're all building.
Everyone have a great day.
Bye. Take care.